When I say Kamasutra, what's the first thing you think of? Exactly. A mysterious ancient book of impossible sexual positions. The ultimate challenge for the bedroom acrobat. But what if I told you that's almost entirely wrong? What if I told you the book that's become a modern punchline is actually a sophisticated 1,700-year-old guide to the art of living, and that the part about sexual positions is just one small fraction of a much larger, more fascinating story? Today we're diving into the real Kamasutra. We'll uncover the 7-act play that frames the entire text, reveal what it actually says about finding a partner, managing a marriage, and even dealing with adultery, and expose how a flawed Victorian-era translation created the myth we all know today. Stick around, because the truth is way more interesting than the legend. So, where did we get this idea of the Kamasutra as just a sex manual? For that, we have to thank this guy. This is Sir Richard Burton. In 1883, he published the first English translation. But here's the secret. His translation was highly mannered, padded, and inaccurate. It was actually the work of several scholars, and Burton and his partner Arbuthnot deliberately used exotic-sounding words like lingam and yoni to make the whole thing feel distant and anthropological, dodging the strict obscenity laws of Victorian England. They basically turned a complex cultural document into a piece of scandalous foreign erotica. But the original text, written by a scholar named Vatsyayana Malanaga around the 3rd century CE, wasn't erotica. It was a shastra, a scientific and didactic text. Vatsyayana saw life as a balance of 3 goals: Dharma, piety, morality, and duty; Artha, profit, power, and success; and Kama, pleasure, desire, and yes, sex. The Kama Sutra is his guide to mastering that 3rd part, Kama, without messing up the other 2. And he structured his guide like a play, a 7-act drama of a man's life. It then lists the 64 arts a sophisticated person should learn, which are mostly non-sexual skills like singing, painting, architecture, and even teaching parrots to talk. Finally, it introduces our protagonist, the man about town. It details his lifestyle, from how to furnish his home to his daily routine, and introduces his key assistants, the libertine, pander, and clown. Act 2. Sex. This is the famous part, but it's treated with the precision of a science. It's a complete anatomy of the physical act. It begins with a sexual typology, classifying men and women based on the size of their sexual organs, their endurance, and their temperament. From there, it breaks down every element of lovemaking into distinct categories: embracing, kissing, scratching with nails, and biting. It covers the famous sexual positions, but also discusses unusual sexual acts, slapping and moaning. Crucially, it includes a whole section on the woman playing the man's part, acknowledging female initiative. The book also details oral sex, the start and finish of a sexual encounter, and even how to handle lovers' quarrels. Act 3. Virgins. This act covers the stage of life before marriage, focusing on courtship and how to build a connection that leads to union. It details the entire process of finding a wife, from courting the girl and making alliances with her family, to winning her trust. It provides a guide for making advances and, just as importantly, for interpreting her gestures and signals to know if your advances are welcome. In a surprisingly egalitarian move, it includes a section on the advances a virgin can make towards the man she wants. Act 4. Wives. The play now moves into domestic life. This book is a detailed guide to navigating the complexities of marriage in ancient India. It describes the ideal life of an only wife, including her responsibilities and her conduct when her husband is away on a journey. It then dives into the intricate politics of a polygamous household, with separate sections on the senior wife, the junior wife, the second-hand woman, a remarried woman, the wife unlucky in love, and the women of the harem. It also gives advice to the husband on his management of many women. Act 6. Courtesans. This isn't about common street prostitution. It's a guide for and about the Ganaka, a highly educated and often wealthy courtesan who was a respected public figure. The approach is incredibly businesslike. It teaches how to decide on a lover, how to get him, and how to give him what he wants. It includes very practical advice on ways to get money from him and how to spot the signs that his passion is cooling. It even covers the full life cycle of a relationship, ways to get rid of him, and if the circumstances are right, how to get back together with an ex-lover. Act 7. Erotic Esoterica. The final act is the strangest. It's a collection of secret recipes, magic, and what we might call biohacks for when the standard arts of love aren't enough. It's filled with recipes for ointments and charms for making yourself lucky in love and for putting someone in your power. There's a whole section of recipes for stimulants for virility, essentially ancient aphrodisiacs. It covers methods for rekindling exhausted passion and, famously, techniques and recipes for increasing the size of the male organ. It's a truly wild collection of folk medicine and magic. So, what do we make of all this? The Kamasutra that has been sold to us is a caricature. The real text is a window into a world that viewed pleasure not as a sin to be suppressed, but as an art to be cultivated, balanced with duty and ambition. It's a book that is surprisingly sympathetic to women's feelings and their sexual subjectivity. It's a story about the entire arc of a life, from setting up your first apartment to navigating complex relationships, and finally, facing old age. It teaches that the ultimate pleasure comes not from a checklist of positions, but from intimacy, understanding, and a life lived with style and awareness. Vatsyayana's goal was to create a guide for a life of sensible pleasure. He achieved that by giving us not just a manual, but a work of art. So, the next time someone makes a joke about the Kamasutra, you can tell them what it's really about. What was the most surprising thing you learned today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed uncovering the truth behind the myth, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Thanks for watching.